Unicorn Roast.
Welcome to another episode of Unicorn Roast Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Mike Elgin. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great, and I've been thinking a lot about language translations because I've been traveling around in foreign language countries for a long time. I suck badly at learning languages, which is to say that I'm kind of lazy about it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people I know abroad speak English, and it's really easy to not speak a foreign language the way that we travel, my wife and I. And so I have not been super diligent. I picked up some language and so on, but lately I've been wearing Ray-Ban Meta glasses, which have
Mm-hmm.
a experimental live translation feature.
Yeah, that's really cool. Kind of
Yeah,
like a whole new world.
exactly. And you just turn it on, and whenever anybody speaks any language, including English, it will give me the English. And sometimes, comically, it even mistranslates English into English, which is fun. It's
Some people,
problematic, and
some people might need that. I mean,
yeah,
it could be
exactly,
helpful.
exactly. It's super helpful, especially if you're not really fully paying attention. It's great to hear it a second time. But like, it does weird things. Like sometimes it picks up people who are 25 yards away having a
Well,
conversation between themselves, and I hear that conversation in English in my ear. Sometimes somebody's 5 feet away, and it doesn't really pick it up. It's not great at translation, and it puts the entire conversation in the app. So if you have the app open and you say something in English, it will show you the foreign language translation on
hmm.
the app,
Are
which
you
is
wearing
pretty.
headphones? Like, how are you hearing it?
It's Ray-Ban Meta glasses, so they have the speakers above your ears, and
In
they
the glasses band, so
in
it's
the
like, okay, got it.
glasses, so it
Hmm.
looks like you're just wearing regular glasses,
Right.
and it's really cool. It works for some situations. If you're sitting around the table with four people, it's terrible because there's a delay, and then by the time it gives you the translation, somebody else is talking and you're listening and you not really, so it doesn't really work. But if you're in an airport or at the store, you ask somebody, a question, you figure out how to say it in the foreign language and you ask the question. When they answer you, you'll understand the answer. That kind of
Hmm.
thing is really fantastic. So I really like that. Plus, here's the thing I've not read anybody talk about. I've not seen it anywhere, which is that in addition to the live translation feature, they have something called Live AI. Live AI is a multimodal feature where the glasses are always kind of looking at the video that are streaming through your glasses. And you can walk around and just chit chat with the AI, with
Hmm.
Meta AI. And you can say, well, where am I? And it will just tell you where you are, and it'll describe things around you and do all this kind of stuff. And if you're looking at a sign, you can just say, what does this sign say in English? And you don't even tell it the language. There's no prompting. There's no downloading a language. You just ask it, what does this say in English? And it will tell you. It'll just read the sign, which is really amazing.
It
Really, really
is.
great.
It is.
Yeah,
I feel like it could be a lot more enriching to travel like that. But I still feel like learning languages is a good and positive thing for brain development, for making relationships with people abroad. I mean, there's still reasons to learn a language, but maybe this could inspire someone to learn a language by giving them more of a taste of what they're missing.
exactly. That's true. And it's also a way to learn the language because you may be picking it up, because if you don't speak the language and people are talking, you know, at the airport or all around you all the time and you're not really processing what they're saying, then you're not learning. But if you hear the English, then it's kind of like a little instructional thing. Well, here's the problem with your vision of the future in which people actually have any motivation at all to learn languages. Apple, according to Mark Gurman, who's the great leaker of all things Apple, says that Apple is going to build language translation into AirPods. It's going to be an update to iOS
Right.
19. Well, this is serious catch up to Google's, Pixel Buds, which have had this since 2017, and it'll work exactly like Pixel Buds. So basically, and it's a great way to do it. So you throw your phone on the table when you're having a conversation with somebody in a foreign language. When they speak to you, you hear English in your AirPods. When you speak to them, they hear the translation through your phone. So it's on speakerphone. This is great. This is a great way to go to the butcher and just throw it on the thing and be able to order something and not end
Hmm.
up with chicken feet or like something you didn't want, right? So So this is going to completely mainstream it, and I think, and I
Hmm.
think we're headed, and because of AI, because of generative AI, I think we're headed to a world in which everything that goes that provides noise to your ears, whether it's headphones, earbuds, smart glasses, VR glasses, speakers, Bluetooth speakers, they'll all just do foreign language translation as a matter of course. I think we're going to be there in a year or two or less. We're already kind of getting there. Already 500 million people use Google Translate daily, and that's not a great experience because it's just through the phone. So when the
Yep.
stuff is in our ears, it's going to be really great.
That's pretty crazy. I think it seems like Apple's AirPods, earbuds, whatever they're called, are kind of like their most innovative product. I mean, we talked about the hearing aid function previously in the podcast, and now they're adding translation. Um, Maybe we could just get rid of iPhones and just have everything in the earbud, almost like Meta Ray-Ban glasses.
There was a concept that I wrote about many years ago called the PAN, the personal area network, where your body was basically the computer, and essentially you'd have smart glasses, you'd have a watch, you'd have something talking in your ears, and there's no apparent computer, but you just interact through voice, and the computer is just on the normal gadget. People are already wearing wristwatches and eyeglasses. You put AI and microprocessors into those, and you could get there with sufficient miniaturization. I think that'd be pretty great, by which I mean that might be pretty awful because people, there's a point at which you're not really using a tool, you're just sort of being augmented. Your
Right.
brain is being augmented and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know what the implications of that are, but I do believe that having foreign language translations available all the time, everywhere, will really cause problems for the problem of motivating people to learn languages. I think people just will
Right.
say, well, why would I bother?
That's probably true. You really need to have a serious need to learn a language or intellectual curiosity. But I think in general, like Americans need to get out, need to see other countries. In general, cross-cultural education is really beneficial to bring in new ideas and just have fun and gets outside your context. And if this gets people to do it, great. I mean, I'm trying to see the upside. There's always that. I kind of grew up with like learning languages being an important thing, so it hits home a little bit of like, wow, that's just not a thing anymore.
Right.
But not everyone grew up like that, and I think if this can make it accessible, that would be a good thing.
If people grow up like that and they learn languages, they're going to learn, Spanish, French, maybe Italian,
Hmm.
maybe German. You're not going to learn all of those if you're an American because you can't, it's so hard to find people to practice with. But let's say, as an amazing example, you raise a child and that child speaks five languages. Well, there are thousands of languages. And so imagine a world in which AI lets you go and speak Swahili and they let you, go to, the South America and speak indigenous languages
Right.
to indigenous people. Could be great. I think we can both agree that the way to go is to teach kids foreign languages, teach ourselves foreign languages, rely on the real thing to the greatest extent possible, but but take advantage of the technology that lets you talk to people that you otherwise would never be able to talk to. And by the way, there are languages, and then there are dialects, and then there's things in between. When I go to Morocco, right, they speak Arabic supposedly, but when I you know
Supposedly.
what supposedly, so when I use Google Translate to speak Arabic, it's speaking a kind of, I don't know, generic or classical or Middle Eastern or Egyptian Arabic, right? But they speak something called Darija in
Okay.
Morocco. It's a dialect that's more than a dialect. It's like there's a lot of different vocabulary. The
Right.
pronunciation is way different. And so I've found that just using ChatGPT or something like that, I can get uh, the chatbots to tell me how to say something in Darija, and
Cool.
whereas Google Translate just will give me the generic Arabic. So there's that advantage as well. So I don't know. I think it's no substitute for good parenting. It's no substitute for being a lot less lazy than I am.
Well, there's a
and learning
different
language.
reason for it. I mean, like when if you're going to a different country, you want to tell the taxi driver where you're going, you want to order food, you want to hear what, if you want to go to a movie theater and hear what the movie is saying, it would be helpful for that. But if you want to go to a country and you want to, meet people, you want to go out, you want to like have a conversation, you want to learn the slang, you want to, be convincing, you want to not look like a tech nerd, you want to just look like a person and have an immersive experience. I
Too
don't
late for
think
me, but
I don't think this would cover that. Yeah. But if you're surfing the world and you're a tech journalist like Mike
right,
Elgin, what
right.
a great thing.
What an excuse that is to just look like a complete
Exactly.
idiot. But like, I, but and also the other thing you learn, as you know, is having learned foreign languages, the languages aren't just languages. There are often not direct translations. The expressions vary. People look at things differently. I studied Japanese in college. I'm shocked to learn that, like in our language, when you want something, that you are in this condition of want. Like it
Right.
has nothing to do with the thing. It's like you have this psychological profile of wanting something. In Japanese, you have nothing to do with it. The thing is wanted,
Interesting. Okay,
and you're
so
like,
that's another reason to learn languages because if you were just
yes,
translating, you would never know the nuances. You wouldn't learn,
yes, yes.
the other meaning and the interest in language.
Right. The way, and I'll say this as sort of wrap up of this segment, the way to learn about another culture is to learn their language and then sit down and have meals with people, local people. And that's where you learn everything through the food, through the talking, through, drinking together and doing all that kind of stuff. That's how you really learn a culture. And I don't think AirPods are going to really
No.
get you there.
But maybe it's just you have tools in your toolbox. You're
Right.
different thing for different time, but
Yeah.
very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, back here in the States, we have a complete all out brawl between Tesla, Elon Musk, the general public, Donald Trump, and it's just an absolute meltdown at Tesla. Are you following this?
Yes, a bit. I learned a lot from your reporting on this, but I've been sort of following the
Thank you.
defacement of Tesla cars and stuff like that,
Right.
and it's been kind of interesting and
Yeah.
disheartening.
Yes, it's really reaching a fever pitch this week. And this is just the biggest news story in EVs. It's also an international story because the protests are happening in Europe. Cars are burning. People are protesting at showrooms. Sales are absolutely tanking in Europe. And then it's kind of happening in a similar but a little bit of a smaller version here. And this week, a longtime Tesla investor called for Elon Musk to step down as CEO. I totally saw that coming. I tweeted about that. I think that will happen if nothing changes for sure.
Yeah,
Um, Elon Musk was tweeting all night in defense of his boy Elon. Lay off him. He's making crazy claims like if someone burns or vandalizes a Tesla, he's going to send them to the prison in El Salvador where he sent the Venezuelan, 238 Venezuelan people he made, claims were affiliated with gangs with no evidence. And in that prison, there's like lack of food, cruel conditions. So and then last night, Elon Musk held an emergency staff meeting at Tesla to kind of like calm the nerves of staffers and investors. And I just really feel like it's going totally off the rails, like masterclass into how to completely mess something up.
I agree. And there's a lot of bad trends in this story. So the first one is vandalism. That's not a. I don't think that's a legitimate or good way to protest. I don't think
No,
people who
that's
bought
not
a
good.
who bought a Tesla like 5 years ago bear any responsibility for Doge or anything like that. So, it's just don't do that, folks. But the other thing is that, first of all, Elon Musk, I'm kind of old fashioned. I think a CEO should devote his entire working life to that company that he's the CEO of and not have like
Right.
five companies and then become super active dismantling the executive branch of government. That's a lot of work. He can't do all those jobs. He can't. Everybody thinks he's like this amazing. He's learned the secrets to being a massively productive guy. This
No.
is not true at all. People, insiders at Tesla will tell you that they get so much more done when he's not around. and that
Wow.
he's
Well, he
more of a
said this week that he's having, quote, great difficulty running his businesses. So he's admitting he's going off the rails. It is very clear he's going off the rails.
yeah.
It's just terrible. It's very unstable, and I really, really, really think something needs to change here. It's just getting worse and worse and worse, and it's been months.
And the president's authoritarian tendencies are really coming out. Like, he did a basically a it's Cal Worthington, it's dog Spot, like a car salesman thing on the. Did you get that
Yes.
reference?
Yes. No, no,
Okay,
I didn't. But when you
okay.
said car salesman, I was like,
That
yep.
in California, there was a car. These car ads were on late night television, and like half the ads were this guy Cal Worthington in this massive parking lot selling used cars. Anyway, Trump was doing
Nice.
this on the White House lawn, which is clearly an abuse of the ethics rules that are supposed to govern this sort of thing. And it's also disheartening that he's threatening 20-year prison sentences for people who vandalize Teslas. The maximum penalty for vandalizing a car or something like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years,
Right.
and a fine. That's the max.
In
He's
the
inventing.
US, you don't, like locked up abroad, send someone to a quote terrorist unit of an El Salvador prison. I mean,
That's
it's crazy. It's
yes,
crazy.
and why is that the crime? Americans are victimized by so many crimes. But the one that affects the world's richest person, his friend,
Right.
that's really something's got to be done about that. And who gives a
Right.
crap about all the other crimes, the violence, the drugs, the rest of it? It's just obscene. And by the way, I've learned a lot about this El Salvador super prison. It's really awful. A couple of points that I didn't know before were that the inmates are never allowed to see the outside. They never go
Oh my
outside.
God.
There are approximately 80 people per cell, and they don't have mattresses, sheets, blankets, or pillows. They just lay on the springs of the cots. They stack them
Oh
up in
my
bunk
God.
beds.
That makes my skin crawl even thinking of doing that.
They get 20 minutes a day, roughly, outside of their cell in sort of the hallway of this big airplane hangar like structure, and then back in the cell. That's the only time they ever leave the cell. They're not allowed to talk. So it's dead quiet in there. There's tens of thousands of people in this giant room, and it's quiet because if anybody talks, it goes straight to
Wow.
solitary confinement. It's torture. It's torture, and our president is threatening American citizens with torture under a brutal a foreign dictatorship if they spray paint his friends' cars. We're really in a weird place right now.
Yeah. I
And
saw
so,
clips of the prison on the news this morning and it was very scary. For some reason, the inmates don't show their face like
yeah,
to any of the images. So they're all like heads down, crouched with shaved heads, kind of like chained together in lines. And
yes,
it really struck me as just a great atrocity and a great, just something that will be talked about in history that our government is actively participating in these prisons in El Salvador. It just really hit home as this made me sick. It just
yeah. And this isn't a tech thing, but I think it's worth throwing it out there because I don't hear people saying this. The Venezuelans that he sent there are innocent, by which I mean, under U.S. law, people are presumed innocent until proven guilty. They were not proven guilty in a court of law. So under U.S. law, they are presumed innocent. So we sent 238 presumed innocent people to this hell of a prison.
right. And it's a fear tactic. And I
Sure.
feel like Trump and Musk, they're just doing these things and saying these things to get people to stop, going against them or saying things against them. And that's why it was notable that this week that investor went on air on Sky News and said, "Hey, I haven't said this on any news channel yet, but I'm saying it right now. Tesla or CEO of Tesla needs to step down."
Hmm.
And so it's cool when you see people like, stand up and kind of try to keep the wheels going on this whole tech thing because at
Yeah.
least everything Elon Musk is involved in, particularly Tesla, is like totally off the rails.
You said you saw it coming, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Fact A, Tesla sales are tanking. The company has massive problems. And fact B, the CEO is nowhere to be found. He's off doing something else. And so, therefore, out he goes.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't make the cars. He doesn't invent the cars. He doesn't design the cars. He's just the guy who says, yeah, let's just ignore the rules. Let's just ignore California law and have people coming to work, even though it's a pandemic. And
Right.
whether you agree with that policy or not, that was a law everybody else was following. And
Right.
And that's what his role is to be a
Right.
sort of a tyrant and dictator. That was Steve Jobs' role to a certain extent, and that helped Apple
Right.
be successful. So instead of a
It,
committee, you have a dictator. So and that works in a company. It doesn't work so well in a country.
it
So
doesn't even work well in a company. I think people see him as some great business leader. And I mean,
yeah.
I think a lot of business leaders can gain consensus, get buy in from people, push things forward. And that's exactly what he's not doing and why it's tanking.
Hmm.
So I do not think this is a business lesson. And I think people keep
Right.
saying he's this great business leader. Do not do this in your business. Like with the
Yeah.
way that Trump, or sorry, I'm like interchanging them now. The
Yes.
way Musk grew his businesses, he had a very different mindset. He was almost a different person. Like he, nose to the grindstone, was working towards things. He had, like morals and beliefs with
Yeah.
EVs. He believed in sustainability. He believed in a better future. And he, just had a different headspace. And everyone in his personal life has said he's changed so much. So do not do what he's doing now and expect to be a famous entrepreneur or billionaire because it will not get you there.
And the main thing he's doing now is ketamine. But the
Maybe I
the
should
other
do some ketamine. I need to
the,
relax. It's
the
stressing
other
me out.
stark set of facts to juxtapose in this episode is that the guy who's in Washington with a chainsaw, hacking and slashing and burning on efficiency and cutting funding from the federal government, got $30 billion from the federal government
Yes,
for
that's true.
Tesla and
In
SpaceX.
subsidies. Mm-hmm. Yep.
$30 billion went to this guy, and now he wants to take a chainsaw to the ladder that
Right.
helps other companies that are innovative succeed in the global marketplace. What a douche. Anyway,
What a
okay.
douche. Wait, I want to ask you. Okay, so one point that I feel like may be misinformation. So that the whole like Tesla commercial outside the White House,
Hmm.
I heard someone say like, "Oh, well, Biden invited Ford and GM," and like that there's a long history of like just inviting car companies. So the U.S. is obsessed with its car culture, like
Hmm.
to the White House. So is what Trump did actually any different?
I think so. My understanding, and I'm sure somebody would like to send uh, an email to unicornroastpodcast@gmail.com and
Ooh,
correct
please
me if this is
do.
wrong. Yeah,
That'd be great.
unicornroastpodcast@gmail.com and correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe that meeting is in the news with Biden, who invited all these electric car companies that also are doing electric cars, but didn't invite Elon Musk.
Yeah,
Supposedly, according to some people, that's the thing that set him off down this road of being a conspiracy theory
partially.
and retweeting anti-Semitic memes and all that kind of stuff is that he wasn't invited, and that was a meeting to talk about you know that was a meeting to talk about the future of electric grid. Whereas I believe that the Tesla thing was like, oh, Trump saw that Teslas were being attacked and the sales were down, so he decided to give him a boost on purpose.
Hmm.
So he had his people schedule this photo op to sell Tesla cars.
Right.
I'm
Which
not
is
aware of.
so funny because he spent his
Yeah,
whole campaign saying, "Don't buy Teslas, don't buy
mhm,
EVs." Like
yeah, right.
it's so crazy. It is
That's right.
so
We're going to
crazy.
dismantle the electric, all the
Yeah,
green hippie tree
yeah.
hugger stuff,
And
and
then
we're
he
going to
has an
have
electric
gas,
car
gas, gas.
commercial in front of the White House, like within the first couple months of his administration. I mean,
Yeah,
just talking out of both sides of your mouth, like
yeah,
it's just the hypocrisy is so obvious. And
yes.
I mean, so I'm trying to think, like, is anyone, a lot of people still like him. He's a high approval ratings. And Elon Musk, I don't know, he doesn't have approval ratings. He just has Tesla sales, which are not
Hmm.
doing good. But
Yeah.
I just feel like something's got to give. I mean, the freaking stock market's like driving me crazy. Like,
Hmm.
just the whole thing. I do not want Tesla stock to tank. Like, I know
Hmm.
that Walls like said that on stage. Tim
Right.
Walls, who was running with Kamala Harris, and laughing about Tesla stock
Hmm.
tanking, and you know, I don't think that's right either. I think that's
Right.
a bit much. Like, we just need to turn this whole thing around, and just it needs to be in a much more positive space for everybody.
Right. I think Elon Musk should be fired. He's doing a horrible job of running Tesla. I
Yes.
think Tesla should succeed and would succeed without him. And
Yeah.
it's a great success story that he was part of at some point before he went nuts. And I think that's great. And he still has five or six other companies to fall back on. I mean, what's
Yeah.
the downside? And I don't. He still has his Tesla stock, so he'll actually do better if he's not the
Right.
CEO. So I don't see any downside to him being
Yeah.
fired from that company.
Well, the question is, has he permanently destroyed the Tesla brand?
Yeah, I mean, you would know better than I because you cover the space, but I don't think so. I think, they need to turn things around. They need Lee
Right.
Iacocca to come in and fix everything.
Yeah.
And
I think
where's
it's
Lee
been
going to
done.
do?
There have been great rebrands. I think Tesla still has enough goodwill left to rebrand, and a lot of people want it to. Like a lot of, honestly, men who were really into clean energy and into that whole movement
Yeah,
10, 20 years ago, Elon Musk was their hero, and they have been
yeah.
so disappointed by him. And I feel like all those people who've supported him for a long time would really like to see him be more
Hmm.
sane and the brand be more sane. And
Yeah,
a rebrand would be wonderful, but yeah, Musk has to go for it to happen.
I agree. Well, speaking of things that don't say the right things, LLMs tend to be problematic in a number of ways that we've kind of learned to accept. Frankly, they basically have, and I wrote a piece about this in Computer World, which is why it's been on my mind lately. But essentially, one of the bigger problems that you don't hear a lot about is that the output that they give you when you do a query or do interact with them is super generic, banal, just sort of super Magoo. It's like they're really boring. It's like a PR flack or like a textbook or something like that. The output is bland. It's not the best answer. It's like the average answer. It feels like
Right.
often, and this is a real problem. Another one is hallucination. Now, hallucination, I think uh, definitions vary, but I think in general, it's when the LLM makes an error in its statements of fact accidentally. And
Hmm.
then there's deliberate sabotage, where outside actors, or I guess theoretically inside actors, are deliberately making the chatbot make errors of fact. And we talked about that last time, where Russia's Pravda network is deliberately
Right.
churning out 10,000 articles a day to feed into the chatbot
Hmm.
training models so that they'll spit out Russian disinformation
By the way, I
points.
was inspired by you saying more people need to talk about that, and I talked about it in my segment on CBS News. So
Great,
spreading the
wonderful.
word.
Wonderful. If I had a TV, I would have seen that. And
A couple people in their living rooms saw that. I
yeah,
don't know who, but it happened.
it's probably on YouTube though. It's got to be, right?
Probably, yeah. I know the clip of yeah, there's clips of that segment on YouTube. I can find
Yeah,
it. But anyway, you better to hear it here.
yeah. And don't watch CBS News. Watch Unicorn Roast. No, watch them both and listen to them both.
Well,
That's
Unicorn
my
Roast is giving
recommendation.
CBS News its content.
That's right.
That's
That's
what we're
right.
getting at.
That's why we're here to feed
Hmm.
the mainstream media. Um, no, I think it's great that you do those segments. I think it's fantastic, and I'm glad you're doing it.
It's
That's
fun.
very cool. Yeah, it's very cool.
It's very easy, actually. Like, I
Yeah.
just talk about what I'm reporting on. It's just
Yes.
different than a podcast because in the podcast, you can actually talk and relax and say, oh, I'm buying a house, like we talked about
Yeah.
last time. When you're on air or some radio spots, it's very quick. I mean, you've done media hits, but it's like
Many.
you have 15 seconds to talk about Russia having a content army, like flooding propaganda around the world. And then they're like, what does it mean also? And you're like, um,
Yeah.
how can I explain this in like literally 10 to 15 seconds? So it's
You
podcasts,
have
I
to go in
think,
there with 3 bullet points. I need to make 3 points,
right,
and you'll get to one of them, and that's
right,
it. And then they yank you off, and you're like, "Wait, what?"
right.
It's always a funny feeling too, because I used to do those when I was in New York. Of course, New York is the sort of the world capital in that kind of media. I would do those things all the time, and it was always really funny because you go in and before you go on, they're super nice to you. Can I bring you some water? They're like,
Yeah,
and as soon as you come off, like they have no time for you. Like nobody will even make eye contact. Just leave. It's like because they're done with you and they're
interesting.
busy and they have to get the next person ready. Like I
Hmm.
used to do all these things. So Lance Ulanoff has been doing the sort of like the uh,
Former PC Mag editor in chief.
that's well before that he worked for me at Windows Max. He
Okay,
was
fine, you win.
uh, what was he? I think he was an editorial guy. Anyway, he was on the staff
Yeah,
before. I think he was at PC Mag, then came to Windows Magazine, then went back to PC Mag, then he
got
went
it.
to Engadget or something like that. Anyway, so I used to do Regis and Kathy Lee, like back when it was Regis and it was Kathy Lee.
The
And
Regis of like Regis Philbin.
yes, yeah,
Wow, that's
and
fun.
and I did the thing that Lance Ulanoff has been doing more recently, where they bring the nerd in with a bunch of toys and they show them off and all this kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And I used to do that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah, you'd be
I
good at
spent
that.
I spent 45 minutes in the green room with Rosie O'Donnell once.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it was great. It's really fun, but it's weird. Anyway, so uh, back to chatbots that misbehave, say the wrong things. It's a problem. I think it's a big problem
It's a
because
huge problem.
this is increasingly where we get our information, and people, unfortunately, don't do their own fact checking and so on, and they just kind of take what they get and they use it however they can use it. But there are companies and there are approaches that are going to solve this, and I looked into this, and it's kind of heartening. One of them is simply customization. So instead of just taking the chatbot and using the training data that the global data that it's trained on, you bring in this chatbot that's been trained on that data, but then you give it its own data in a smart way. One of them is, we talked about before, retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, where it goes out and does
Right.
searches. But increasingly, there are companies emerging that specialize in saying, okay, you feed your data into this thing, and that's really what is going to radically prioritize your stuff. And that's going to be far less error in that than
Right.
just getting whatever. The other one is, and I think this is the most interesting thing, there's a company called Contextual AI, and they have something they call the grounded language model. And there's a hyper focus on a factual accuracy. And their whole mission is to reduce hallucinations. And they're industry standard rating systems that have emerged, and
Hmm.
they win that rating system. They're at like 87% accuracy.
Well,
So,
that's good. 87 is not
right?
100%.
Exactly. Not even
Yeah.
in the 90s. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not even a B plus. It's like a B, maybe a B plus.
Right.
Um, but that's where we're at right now. We
Hmm.
tend to think that most of our answers are correct. When they test them, they don't ask them
Right.
question like when was Barry White born or whatever. They ask them hard questions that could be prone to hallucination, so we get these lower numbers. But I think that concept, the concept of a GLM, the grounded language model, I'd like to see a lot more of that. I'd love
Hmm.
to see the industry focusing a lot more on both customization and really
Right.
working on the accuracy of these things.
Well, I'd like to see
Because,
the industry solving problems. Right now, they're creating a lot of problems and they're getting billions and billions of dollars, to say, oh, we're going to solve problems later. And it'd be
yeah,
nice to, I feel like businesses are most successful when they're created to solve problems in a good way. And so there's a problem that it's hard to find information on the internet, but they have not figured out the perfect solution and they just refuse to admit that.
and I think many of the CEOs, not so much Anthropic, and there's a couple of fairly good ones, but many
Hmm.
of these, like Sam Altman, have a kind of God complex. What they're really trying to do is
Yes.
dazzle people with how human these things are. And hey, we can give you a Scarlett Johansson in your pocket, and all this kind
Hmm.
of stuff. And that stuff is a waste of time, and it's a distraction, and it's annoying, and I don't like it. Let's work on making these things great tools for factual information that help us learn, that help us succeed in our jobs, that do all the things they're supposed to
Right.
do, and stop trying to impress people with a dog and pony show of how it's AGI or whatever. Make the chatbots. Let's start with making the chatbots
Yeah, let's make them
tell the
work.
truth.
Right. Even the Google CEO said he said that they don't get the facts right. And the way he said it was they're, quote, not great at factuality because he had to say it in that weird way. But I mean, he said that to his credit, but then he launched on the Google homepage around the world AI overviews, which are going to give, quote, not great facts. So I thought the whole point of Google was to give good information. And it's just now half the whole page is just stuff I can't even trust, but I
Yeah,
still read it. And it's just like I have this weird relationship to it.
yeah, and I'd love to see these AI chatbots applied to the human generated content on social media to give some guidance about what's BS and what isn't. Because the real problem, people think that people argue a lot on social media because they have different opinions, and they don't. All the argumentation is about the facts. They disagree on
Mm-hmm.
what the facts are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if we all had a shared set of facts, then the opinions could emerge, and you could have people who are, I'm pro-business, or I'm, more into,
Right.
making sure that the poorest of the poor have, food in their mouths and all that kind of stuff. Those are opinions. But if you can't agree on whether, just the most fundamental facts, which
True.
nobody can agree with anymore. You can't get anywhere as a society. So
Right.
I'm hoping that LLMs will help us get there somehow.
Hmm. Well, that's why I'm stressed out about the whole Elon Musk Tesla's burning thing because to me it just embodies how divided we are, and it just is so dark and foreboding. Like there's literal cars burning on the streets, and you
Yeah.
know, Elon, we're saying that. I mean, I'm saying that Trump is saying, "Oh, we're going to send you to El Salvador to intimidate people against speaking their opinion," but then Musk is saying that by burning cars, they're trying to intimidate him into not speaking his opinion, and so it's like no, there's no truth anywhere. There's no truth anywhere, and it does not bode well. And even Hollywood is making movies called Civil War, and I'm like, well, it'd be good if our president wasn't, making it worse, but he seems to be
Hmm.
just loving it and making it worse and worse every day. So
Yeah.
it'll get better. I'll be hopeful.
I hope so.
I hope so. But on the AI topic and just how these big companies are handling it. So Apple had a very significant shakeup this week, which was again reported by our boy Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, the Apple whisperer. He basically said that at a private meeting, all the head honchos at Apple went away in a secretive powwow and talked about AI the whole time. And basically, at the end of it, the head of AI was ousted in a way, and it was given to the Vision Pro creator, specifically this development of Siri, which is kind of like the flagship product within Apple Intelligence. So this comes after just a long months. I mean, Apple Intelligence first launched in October, September. And from the start, I think everyone was like, what the heck is it? It was like very clearly marketing with no specific AI model, no specific feature, just, it'll do this to your notifications. You can make an emoji. It was like a smorgasbord of just generative, whatever that it all kind of half worked. Um, and they said, the big thing is going to be there's going to be a new Siri. It's going to be lifelike. It's going to do all the things you're saying Sam Altman, is saying. But it's been delayed again and again and again. Apple Intelligence did not boost iPhone sales. So it's just been a big flop for Apple. And it seems like they're acknowledging that by this big executive shakeup. So we'll see. I think it'll probably still be delayed. I don't know if the Vision Pro creator is the right guy. I mean, the Vision Pro was well received, excellent technology, but no one is using it, which is kind of also what I think about Siri. So it's
Yeah.
like a good fit, but I don't know if he can make things that people use.
Apple's very good at the big picture and long-term thinking. And I think they've come around to a view or a prediction that I think has been kind of obvious for 10 or 15 years, which is that at some point the number one device we're all going to use instead of the smartphone
Are you going to say
is
glasses?
I am
It's
absolutely
like
absolutely glasses.
you're a total glasses
Yeah.
evangelist.
Yeah, because basically what we're getting to, and the glasses that we used to envision 5 years ago and before, were augmented reality glasses where they would give us turn-by-turn directions. We could see them and all this kind of stuff. But it's become clear that the ultimate, yeah, they'll do lots of things, but the ultimate thing that smart glasses will do for us is enable an AI assistant that
Hmm.
we can interact with that will prompt us unbidden with information we might want to know about, that will listen and watch everything we're listening to and watching and provide guidance or answer questions about the things that we're doing. It's all headed in that direction. And so I think this move suggests to me
Hmm.
that Apple understands now that Siri, LLMs, glasses, this is one product and it's the one that replaces iPhones
So you think it's
for Apple.
smart? You think it's smart?
Totally smart. And I think that the Vision Pro is essentially, for lack of a better term, it's the equivalent of the Newton, right? So Apple came up with the Newton device, right? And what it was a handheld device, not pocket sized by any stretch of the imagination. And it used a writing system called graffiti. So you used a little stylus and you had to memorize how to make the letters because they had to be done in a certain way so that you could understand it. But essentially, the vision of the Newton was for people to have a mobile device, handheld device, that where they could interact with it and it would give them information, and they could communicate, and they could send email and all the things you used to do back in those days with a computer. Well, that was the right vision because that's essentially the smartphone. The smartphone is like a Newton with the technology that enables it to be flat, go in your pocket, take amazing pictures, do social networking, all that stuff. And so the Apple Vision Pro is kind of the Newton. The holy grail is I think smart glasses. Now the Ray-Ban Meta glasses don't have any visuals. It will
Right.
take in visual through the camera, but you can't. It wouldn't show you anything.
Hmm.
And so it turns out that whether glasses show you something is not as important as the quality of the AI, even if you can only hear it spoken. And this is really what we're doing is we're augmenting human beings with AI. And the reason glasses has got to be the ultimate form factor is that they're a device already worn by 4 billion people on Earth. It's been established. It's not a pin. Nobody's pinning anything to anything. It's not a necklace or something else. It's the form factor, is the world's largest wearable form factor that already
Right.
exists, the glasses.
Well,
They, you,
what about like hearing aids? Because I feel like we're almost building a case through this podcast that earbuds could also be a really universal form factor, and they you can put a ton of technology in them, and also you can't see them. You don't have to change your whole look. Like, oh, now I wear glasses all the time.
but how many hours a day can you have those things in your ears? Whereas the Ray-Ban Meta
A lot.
glasses has demonstrated that you don't have to have anything in your ears, and it sounds amazing. And so, I mean, by amazing, I mean listening to music is not great on the Ray-Ban Meta glasses compared to
Right.
even AirPods, right? It's much better to listen to AirPods. Headphones are much better than AirPods even. But for chit-chatting with an AI, you want to be able to you want a device that's going to go all day with the battery, and it's not going to like be in your ears. There's something unappealing for the great masses about having something inside their ear canals all day long compared to nothing in
If
the ear
it's
canals.
comfortable though, I don't like having something on my face all day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
maybe different people will like different things.
yeah. I mean, I mean, it's like you're young when you're 50, you're going to wear something on your face unless you get contacts or
I'm
LASIK
probably
surgery.
I already have LASIK, but
Okay.
if I'm going to probably start wearing earbuds, I'll be on the early side.
Yeah.
I'm excited about like
Yeah.
hearing aid tech. I'm kind of like I
Right.
want to start now, but I'm totally going to have invisible hearing aids.
Well, in fact, this whole conversation is a perfect example of where Apple's headed because really it's about
Hmm.
Siri and AI, making Siri like a really great assistant. Because if that's the case, you talk to your laptop and you get your same assistant that's personalized, knows you personally. Earbuds will give it to you, glasses will give it to you,
Right.
every Apple device, and that's really what they want. They want the 15 years from now version of what they have now, which is it was funny yesterday. Kevin and I were walking downtown Los Gatos. Kevin, our is he our producer? Is he a
Well,
producer or
he's
is he?
your son
Yeah,
first
but
and
yeah.
foremost.
Anyway, the guy who puts this podcast
You know,
together,
yeah.
we're
I have a
walk.
little pet peeve about that. Like, okay, so when I entered journalism, I would go to these events and I would see like a man and a woman together at the events, and they felt they were very close. They're like
Mm,
sharing food. They're going around the tech event together, and I'm like, oh yeah, and hey guys, and they'd be like, oh, I'm blah blah, and this is my producer, blah blah, and then it's like,
mm,
no, that's your
mm.
husband. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like
yeah, yeah,
people don't want to admit it's
yeah,
so bizarre to me. So sorry, I
yeah,
just use you as my rant
yeah.
against that.
Yeah. Yeah. My Nepo baby, Kevin. Uh,
Yeah, perfect.
okay.
That's what I want to hear. And by the way, no one's getting paid for this podcast, so this is
All right.
just a little project.
Yeah. And he's very good at it. And
Yeah.
we're very, very grateful that he does it for us. But we were walking down, the street in Los Gatos, walked by the Apple store. And, we're just commenting on like, we have no desire to go into the Apple store. Why? Because
Mm.
we already own all of it. Kevin has a studio display, Apple Vision Pro, the top of the
Wow.
line, giant watch. He's got an Apple Silicon MacBook Pro. I do too. I have like amazing iPad. I got the
Hmm.
watch. We have the AirPods Pro. We have all the things you can have. We have it.
Wow.
There's nothing they can sell us we
Yeah.
don't have. And what a racket. And they want to keep that going, right? The
Right.
Apple wants you to have all the things. And again, I think correctly understand that a really great personalized AI-based assistant, which they will
Mm.
call Siri, is the glue that holds together the entire ecosystem
It is in the future, but
in the
Siri
future.
now to me is a failed product.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
It,
the
it,
most successful product I'm seeing on all the young people in New York from ages 13 to 30 is the AirPods Max, the
yeah,
big headphones.
right.
They're like $550. I cannot believe how many people have them. And
Yeah,
it just feels like it came out of nowhere. I don't know
yeah.
why people would pay for that, but um, yeah, they're kind of they just have very different segments and like very different aims, I think. And you're pointing out a very long term one.
Yes, and but they, I mean, they put the Siri in seriously flawed. They really do. Yeah, thank you. And
It is really
but
flawed. I mean, how are
it's
they hanging their whole hat on that assistant?
it's just a brand name that everybody knows. It's Siri is a household brand,
It is.
and so they can put anything behind that brand that they want. And clearly they know that they have to have great AI. They already use AI in very smart ways. AirPods Pro have had AI for a long time to
Hmm.
detect whether you have put the thing in your ear. That's AI determining whether it's in your ear or not.
Right.
And but they're going to do. Why would they come up with a new brand? Like Siri is a well-known brand. They're going to fix it. I'm confident they will. If a company like Apple is not able to come out with a really good LLM-based assistant, that's surprising. And
Yes, especially because a lot of good models are just open source, and they certainly have the engineers to just use that.
and they have billions and billions
Yeah.
and billions of dollars,
Billions of dollars, most valuable company in the world.
and they have their system for keeping personal data on the device, so they can make it highly personalized without
Right.
uploading everything to the cloud and
Right.
compromising
Right. Well, they got to figure
security.
out the form factor too, because a giant snorkel mask Vision Pro is not exactly the ultimate form factor, in my opinion. I don't think
Right.
people want to be seen like that. But they also, the thing with the glasses to me is like sunglasses style changes a lot. And are they kind of getting into fashion as well? Because it's going to be outdated. Like, no one wants to wear an ugly pair of sunglasses, no matter how much AI. I mean, okay, a lot of people do, but I don't want to wear an outdated, ugly form of sunglasses for a long time. So they'd have to keep up with the trends.
Don't you feel that Apple really wants to be in the fashion industry? I mean, look at with the glee with which they jumped into to wristwatch bands and things like that.
Right. They
I,
are very fashionable. They are. They
I
have the chops, probably more than Meta, and Meta knew it, so they partnered with Ray-Ban.
yeah, good call, Mark
Yeah.
Zuckerberg. But yeah, I think that in fact I think that's considered a huge opportunity. If you could have 45 styles from Apple, some of which would be like super like, Y3K cyberpunk looking like fat, things. Some of you, like aviator glasses styles and have a whole bunch of things and use their reputation for good taste
Hmm.
to have these styles and come up, the ability to come out with new styles every year and motivating some people to junk their old Apple smart glasses and get new
Yep.
ones
They
because of the
live for it.
fashion.
They live
They
for
would
it.
love that.
Yes. I think okay, so my interpretation of this initially was it was an admission of failure that their AI strategy has not worked. I think that's probably still true, just or at least they didn't know what it was, which is why they kept pushing back the Siri portion. And also, no one really likes Apple Intelligence. I think there's like surveys on that. But you are rightly pointing out that perhaps it is not a complete failure because you think they have the right long-term vision and they're doing what they need to do.
That's right. I think they will figure out the assistant. I think it will be superior in many ways, partly because they have personal data which their faithful users will be happy to give up, knowing that it's going to stay on the device and not be shared in the
Right.
cloud and all that kind of stuff. And so imagine, this is really what we want, or what I want. I think a lot of people would want is that assistant you can talk to who knows your deal, who knows your calendar, who knows your family, who knows like what you like or don't like and all this kind of stuff, and is always learning and growing,
Mm-hmm.
more personalized. And they're going to call it Siri because that's the brand that everybody knows.
Mm.
And I think that's perfectly, it's a no-brainer prediction, I think.
Well, I think they should hurry up because Amazon has their glasses. Amazon's revamping their Alexa, and with a very different value proposition that Alexa's going to know absolutely everything about you, and there's nothing you can do about it. and it's kind of murky, it's kind of weird. So if someone can do it right and it can be useful and not, destroy the fabric of how we
Right.
interact,
Yeah.
then I'm good.
Apple has a short-term disadvantage, which is that they're slow and they're careful, and a short-term advantage, which is they own the phone. Like, if you think about
Right.
young
Huge.
people in America, vast majorities have iPhones, and if in the short term, the the phone is actual the device you're using, and
Right.
the glasses are an interface to that phone, and so that's a huge
Right.
advantage for them. And then in
Is
the
it the
long
majority of
term,
young people though? I
well,
mean, the iPhone's
uh,
more expensive
yeah, among teenagers, it's like 80% or some crazy,
because they're all just
overwhelming.
brats and they're like, I need the iPhone.
Well, and there's also social pressure to not be the green in the green
Oh,
bubble,
that's true. That's
stuff
true.
like that. There's all kinds
What
of
a
reasons for
world.
that.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean
actually,
globally,
abroad, yeah,
yeah,
globally, not so good. And a big issue
yeah,
for Apple is that their AI stuff doesn't work in Chinese.
yeah,
So
yep.
that's they have a lot to figure out.
And who knows whether the Chinese government will ever let Apple's AI function in China. So that's
Probably make a
another,
deal. They'll probably make a deal. It'll probably be DeepSeek because
yeah,
Apple hasn't committed to any model. They've
yeah.
never said
We'll
like
train it on
OpenAI.
the works
Yeah.
of Mao, and then it'll be
Yeah.
totally,
They don't
or Xi
care if that's
Jinping
what's
more likely.
acceptable in that market and sells phones.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Sadly, they don't. They do not care. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening and watching. You've made it through another episode of the Unicorn Roast podcast with me, Mike Elgin, and Emily Forlini. This podcast has no paywall, no ads, and no sponsors, and all we ask from you is a 5-star rating and a glowing review on the podcast thing of your choice. Follow us, subscribe, and get links and show notes, and send email via our website, unicornroast.com, and we'll see you next week.
Unicorn Roast.